the massive detention facility on Kepler 4, for it to be stretched across the barren landscape like a metal beast. Inside its thick walls, the most feared criminals in the galaxy waited behind energy barriers that could stop a plasma cannon. The air itself seemed to vibrate with barely contained danger. Kim Dae-ho sat on his hard bunk and turned another page on his small reading device. The human looked nothing like the other prisoners, while alien inmates paced in their cells like caged predators. Dae-ho read quietly. He wore simple gray clothes instead of the heavy restraints that held the others. No neural dampener covered his head. No containment field buzzed around his cell. 3 days ago, space station security had arrested him. His crime was not murder or theft. Station inspectors had found his cargo ship's food storage and declared it dangerous. Unlawful biological contamination, they called it. Dae-ho still did not understand what that meant. He was just a cargo pilot carrying supplies between worlds. From his jacket pocket, he pulled out a colorful wrapper. Inside was a small brown bar divided into squares. He broke off one piece and chewed slowly. The chocolate was sweet and reminded him of Earth. He had bought a whole case of these bars before leaving home. Now they were evidence of his supposed crime. Guard Captain Nexel watched from the corridor. The alien captain had gray skin like old leather and 4 yellow eyes that never blinked at the same time. He had worked at this prison for 20 years. He had seen creatures that could tear through steel with their bare hands. He had watched beings who could control minds or shoot fire from their eyes. But this human puzzled him. Why is this one here? Vexel asked Guard Kess, who stood beside him. Kess was younger and had only worked here for 2 years. The report says biological weapons, Kess replied. He held up a data pad. His ship carried substances banned by the Galactic Health Code. Vexel looked at the human again. Dae-ho had finished his small piece of chocolate and was carefully folding the wrapper. He placed it in a neat pile with other wrappers on his small table. Everything about him seemed calm and organized. Biological weapons, Vexel repeated. That soft creature. In the cell next to Dae-ho, a Vorthok assassin scraped its crystal claws against the wall. The sound made both guards step back. The Vorthok had black eyes like holes in space. Its body was covered in sharp crystal spikes that could cut through armor. Last month, this same creature had killed 30 soldiers on a mining station. 2 cells down, a Zephyrian mind controller sat in meditation. The pale blue alien looked almost peaceful, but Vexel knew better. 3 years ago, this being had taken control of an entire city's population. The Zephyrian could make people do anything just by looking at them. That was why thick metal covered its cell window at the end of the block. A Korath raider slammed its fists against the energy barrier. Each hit made the barrier flash bright red. The Korath was 7 feet tall and covered in scars. Its plasma cannons had been removed, but its natural strength could still crush bones. This one had destroyed 5 cargo ships and killed everyone aboard. Vexel looked back at Dae-ho. The human was reading again. Sometimes he would smile at something on his screen. He looked more relaxed than most guards did on their day off. Check his file again, Vexel told Kess. There must be a mistake. Kess touched his datapad several times. Says here he was carrying prohibited organic compounds. The list is very long. Theobromine, caffeine, lactose, various plant proteins, ... He looked confused. Sir, some of these sound like food chemicals. Food. Vexel's 4 eyes focused on the human. Dae-ho was unwrapping another piece of chocolate. Show me the evidence. Storage report. Kess found the file. They confiscated 847 items from his ship. Mostly small packages and containers, all labeled as ... snack foods. Vexel felt a strange chill. In 20 years, he had learned to trust his instincts. Something was very wrong here. Either this human was the most dangerous prisoner they had ever held, or the bureaucrats had made a terrible mistake. Sir, Cass said quietly. Why would someone disguise biological weapons as food? Before Xul could answer, alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed throughout the corridor. The captain's radio crackled to life. Security breach in Section C, multiple inmates escaping. All units respond immediately. Both guards ran toward the emergency. Behind them, Deho looked up from his reading. He could hear shouting and the sound of energy weapons firing. Carefully, he marked his place in the book and stood up. He walked to his cell door and listened to the chaos growing louder. The chocolate wrapper crinkled softly in his hand as he smiled. Guard. Lee Sungmin walked down the long corridor, pushing a hovercart filled with medical supplies. His left shoulder ached from yesterday's accident in the cargo bay. A heavy container had fallen and bruised him badly. The medical wing would give him pain medicine and check for deeper damage. The transport should have been easy. Sungmin had done this walk hundreds of times. The facility had rules for everything. Guards always traveled in pairs. Weapons stayed ready. Prisoners moved in special containers that blocked their powers. Nothing ever went wrong during medical transports. But today felt different. The air seemed thick and heavy. Even the lights looked dimmer than usual. Sungmin pushed his cart faster. He wanted to finish this job and return to his post. Section C was the most dangerous part of the prison. Here they kept the worst criminals in the galaxy. Sungmin always felt nervous walking through this area. The prisoners watched him through, their cell windows like hungry animals. Some smiled in ways that made his skin crawl. The Vorthok assassin was scheduled for medical scanning today. Prison doctors needed to check its crystal growth patterns. These creatures grew new spikes every few months, and the doctors had to file them down so they could not be used as weapons. The assassin sat in its transport container, black eyes staring at nothing. Behind the Vorthok, 3 more transport containers held other dangerous prisoners. A Zephyrian mind controller, a Korath raider, and the human cargo pilot who had been arrested 3 days ago. Sungmin still did not understand why the human was here. The man looked harmless compared to the others. They were halfway to the medical wing when everything went wrong. The Vorthok suddenly opened its mouth and screamed. But this was not a normal scream. The sound was so high and sharp that it cut through metal like a knife. The transport container began to crack. Thin lines spread across the clear walls like spider webs. Sungmin dropped his hovercart and reached for his weapon. But the sound was so loud that he could not think straight. His ears felt like they were bleeding. The corridor filled with the terrible screaming noise. The container shattered. Crystal pieces flew everywhere. The Vorthok stood up slowly, its spikes gleaming under the red emergency lights. Alarms began to sound throughout the prison. The assassin smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. "Oh no," Sungmin whispered. He pressed the emergency button on his belt. Code red in Section C: prisoners escaping. Send help now. But worse things were happening. The Zephyrian mind controller stepped out of its broken container. Its pale blue skin began to glow. Its eyes turned bright white, like tiny suns. 2 guards came running to help, but when they looked at the Zephyrian, they stopped moving. The guards turned around slowly. Their faces looked empty, as if no one was home inside their heads. The Zephyrian had taken control of their minds. Now, they pointed their plasma rifles at Sungmin and the other prison staff. "Kill them," the Zephyrian said in a voice like cold wind. The controlled guards began to fire. Bright blue energy beams lit up the corridor. Sungmin dove behind his hovercart as plasma fire melted the walls around him. The smell of burning metal filled the air. The Korath raider broke free next. This creature was 7 feet tall and covered in old battle scars. It had been a warrior before becoming a criminal. Its hands were as big as dinner plates and strong enough to crush steel. The raider grabbed pieces of the broken transport containers and threw them like weapons. One large piece of metal flew through the air and hit the human's transport container. Sparks flew everywhere as the binding field around Kim Dae-ho flickered and went dark. The container door swung open. Sungmin expected the human to run away in fear like any normal person would. The corridor was full of deadly aliens, energy, weapons, and flying debris. Any sane person would try to escape or hide, but Dae-ho did not run. Instead, he walked calmly to a security bin where the guards kept confiscated items. He reached inside and pulled out a small package wrapped in bright colors. While chaos exploded around him, the human carefully unwrapped what looked like a simple food bar. The facility's lockdown system activated with loud grinding sounds. Heavy metal doors began to close throughout the prison. Emergency lights turned, everything red. Warning voices spoke from hidden speakers. Containment breach in Section C. All personnel evacuate immediately. Lockdown in progress. Sungmin crawled along the floor, trying to avoid the plasma fire. He could see the human standing quietly in the middle of the battle. Dae-ho took a small bite of his food bar and chewed thoughtfully. He looked completely calm, as if he was having a picnic, instead of watching the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy escape from prison. What is wrong with that human? Sungmin said to himself. Why is he not afraid? The Vorthok assassin heard him and turned its black eyes toward Dae-ho. The crystal creature moved like a hunting cat, slow and deadly. Its spikes made scraping sounds against the walls, but the human just stood there, holding his simple snack and smiling slightly. The screaming sounds came from everywhere at once. Guard Park. Ji-woo pressed his back against the cold metal wall and tried to stop the bleeding from his arm. Plasma fire had burned through his uniform and left a deep wound. Next to him, 2 other guards were hurt even worse. One could not stand up. The other held his broken ribs and breathed in short, painful gasps. We are trapped, Ji-woo whispered. His radio was broken. His weapon was empty. There was nowhere to run. At the end of Corridor 9, 3 escaped prisoners moved toward them like hunting wolves. The Vorthok assassin led the group. Its crystal spikes caught the red emergency lights and threw sharp shadows on the walls. Each step made a clicking sound like breaking glass. Behind the assassin, a Zephyrian mind controller floated a few inches off the ground. Its pale blue skin glowed with strange energy. The third creature was an Ixarian warrior, tall and covered in black armor that looked like it was made from space itself. The Vorthok reached out with one crystal claw and scraped it along the wall. The sound made Ji-woo's teeth hurt. Sparks flew from the deep scratches in the metal. Nowhere to run, little guards, the assassin said in perfect galactic standard. Its voice sounded like wind blowing through a graveyard. You should not have tried to keep us in cages. Ji-woo closed his eyes and waited for the end. He thought about his family on the distant world of New Seoul. His wife would be making dinner now. His children would be doing homework. They would never know what happened to him. That was when footsteps echoed from the corridor junction. Someone was walking toward them. The footsteps sounded calm and steady, not like someone running in fear. Kim Dae-ho appeared around the corner. The human cargo pilot still held his unwrapped snack in one hand. His gray prison clothes were clean and neat. He looked like he was taking a peaceful walk, instead of entering a battle zone filled with deadly escaped criminals. The 3 aliens turned to stare at him. The Vorthok tilted its head like a curious bird. The Zephyrian's glowing eyes focused on the newcomer. The Ixarian warrior raised its weapon. Another prisoner, the Zephyrian said in a voice like cold water. This one looks weak. Kill it quickly and continue with our business. But the Vorthok held up one crystal claw to stop the others. The assassin had lived for 300 years and killed beings from dozens of different worlds. It knew when something was strange, and this human was very strange. Wait, the Vorthok said. It stepped closer to Dae-ho, crystal spikes scraping against the ceiling. You are the human from Cell Block 7, the one they say carries biological weapons. Dae-ho smiled politely. Hello, he said in accented Galactic Standard. His pronunciation was careful, like someone who had learned the language from books. You are having trouble with the guards. The assassin laughed. The sound was like glass breaking inside a metal box. Trouble? We are free. Flesh thing. These guards cannot stop us. Nothing can stop us now. Ji-woo watched in amazement as the human took a step closer to the deadly aliens. Any sane person would run away screaming. But Daeho looked completely relaxed. That is good for you, Daeho said. He broke off a small piece of his chocolate and peanut bar. The sweet smell filled the corridor. But you must be hungry after being in prison for so long. Would you like to try some food from my world? He held out the piece of chocolate toward the Vorthok. The brown square looked tiny in his palm. The three aliens stared at him in complete silence. Even Ji-woo forgot about his wounds. Nobody moved or spoke for several long seconds. You want to feed us? The Zephyrian asked. Its glowing eyes pulsed brighter with confusion. It is a tradition on Earth, Daeho explained. When we meet new people, we share food. This is chocolate mixed with ground peanuts. It is very popular where I come from. The Vorthok leaned down to examine the offered treat. Its black eyes reflected the emergency lights like tiny mirrors. You think to poison us, human? You think we are stupid enough to eat unknown substances? It is not poison, Daeho said simply. I eat it all the time. Look. He took a bite from his chocolate bar and chewed slowly. Very safe, very delicious. The assassin considered this. In its long life, it had never met a prey creature that offered food to its predators. The behavior was so strange that it made the alien curious. What kind of biological weapon could look and taste like simple food? Interesting, the Vorthok said. It reached out with one razor-sharp claw and carefully took the piece of chocolate. If this kills me, human, I will make sure you die very slowly. The assassin placed the chocolate in its mouth and swallowed. For a moment, nothing happened. The Vorthok stood perfectly still, waiting to feel the effects of whatever poison the human had given it. Then, its crystalline body began to shake. The shaking started small, like a leaf in a breeze. But within seconds, the Vorthok was convulsing violently. Its crystal spikes turned from clear white to a sick purple color. Strange sounds came from its throat, half scream and half choking cough. The assassin fell to its knees, then collapsed, completely on the metal floor. Its body twitched and jerked like a broken machine. Purple foam came from its mouth. The other two aliens backed away in terror. The news traveled through the prison faster than plasma fire. Guards whispered into their radios with voices full of fear and wonder. The human has a weapon, they said. He is taking down the escaped prisoners, one by one. Security Chief Choi Minho sat in the control room watching dozens of video screens. He had worked in prisons for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like this. On screen 7, he watched Kim Daeho walk calmly down corridor 12. The human still carried his chocolate bar and took small bites as he walked. Show me camera 15, Minho told his assistant. The screen changed to show the medical wing. 3 escaped prisoners lay unconscious on the floor. All of them had been brought down by the same human with the same simple method. Sir, the assistant said, the medical computers are sending very strange reports about that chocolate bar. Minho leaned forward in his chair. What kind of reports? The computer says it is just normal food. Sugar, milk, nuts, and some plant chemicals. But it also says this food is extremely dangerous to non-human species. On screen 12, Daeho approached a group of Korath raiders who had cornered 2 guards near the water recycling station. The raiders were 8 feet tall and covered in natural armored plates. Each one could lift a small vehicle with their bare hands. The largest raiders saw Daeho coming and laughed. Look, brothers, it said in the rough Korath language. A tiny human thinks he can fight us. But the other raiders looked nervous. Word had spread about what happened to the Vorthok assassin and the others. "Be careful," one of them warned. "This human carries poison." Deho stopped a few feet away from the raiders and smiled politely. "Hello," he said in Galactic Standard. "Are you hungry? I have some Earth food to share." He broke off a piece of his chocolate bar and held it out. The sweet smell made the raiders step back in fear. "We know your tricks, human," the largest raider growled. "We will not eat your death food." "It is not death food," Deho said patiently. "It is a snack, very popular on my world. Children eat it every day." To prove his point, he ate a piece himself. The raiders watched him chew and swallow with no bad effects. The largest raider considered this. His species prided itself on being brave warriors. If a tiny human could eat this substance safely, surely a mighty Korath could do the same. Besides, the human was obviously lying about it being poisonous. The creature was trying to scare them with mind games. "Give me some," the raider demanded. "I will show you that Korath warriors fear nothing." Deho handed him a piece of chocolate. The raider swallowed it in one gulp and beat his chest with pride. "See? Your weapon is useless against the raider's words." Stopped suddenly. His eyes went wide and strange. He began to sway back and forth, like a tree in strong wind. Within minutes, he collapsed to the floor, unconscious. "Sugar shock," Deho explained to the other raiders, who were backing away in terror. "Your species processes sugar very differently than humans do. Too much at once can make you unconscious." The remaining raiders fled down the corridor, screaming warnings to anyone who would listen. Guard Captain Yoon Sora watched this scene from the security center. She opened a communication channel to the medical wing. "Dr. Kim," she said, "I need you to explain something to me. How can a simple human snack be more dangerous than our best weapons?" Dr. Kim's voice came through the speakers. He sounded confused and amazed. "Captain, I have been studying the medical scans of the affected prisoners. The human's chocolate contains several substances that are harmless to humans, but toxic to other species." "What kind of substances?" Sora asked. "Theobromine from the chocolate affects their nervous systems. Lactose from the milk causes severe digestive problems for species that cannot process it. The peanuts trigger allergic reactions in creatures whose biology is not adapted to earth plants, and the concentrated sugar causes metabolic shock in species with different blood chemistry." Sora watched another screen where Deho was helping injured guards reach safety. Between rescues, he continued to eat his chocolate bar like it was the most normal thing in the galaxy. "So this human is not carrying a weapon at all," Sora said, slowly. "He is just carrying lunch." "That is correct," Dr. Kim replied. "But his lunch happens to be made from substances that are like poison to most non-human species. It is the most effective non-lethal weapon I have ever seen, and he probably does not even know it." On screen 23, Deho encountered a group of Zephyrian mind controllers who had taken control of several guards. The blue-skinned aliens tried to use their mental powers on him, but Deho's thoughts seemed to be protected somehow. "The human mind is very different from ours," one Zephyrian said to another. "It is hard to control." Deho offered them chocolate. When they refused, he simply waited patiently until their stolen mental energy ran out and the controlled guards were freed. Then he helped the guards to safety and continued on his way. "Incredible," Sora whispered. "He is not even trying to fight them. He is just being ... helpful." The prison's AI computer announced, "Containment breach reduced from 15. Escaped prisoners to 3. Human subject continues pacification efforts with 100% success rate." Minho shook his head in wonder. "Remind me to change our food safety regulations after this is over." The central hub of the prison was the largest room in the entire facility. It was where all the corridors met, like the center of a giant wheel. Normally, guards and prisoners moved through this space peacefully. Today, it looked like a battlefield. 5 escaped prisoners had pushed heavy security desks together to make a wall. Behind this barrier, they whispered to each other in frightened voices. These were the most dangerous criminals in known space. They had destroyed planets and killed millions of beings, but now they were afraid of one human with a chocolate bar. "The human is coming," hissed a Vorthok assassin. This one was different from the first. Its crystal spikes were longer and sharper. "I saw what happened to my brother. That creature carries death disguised as food." A Zephyrian mind controller floated nervously behind the barrier. Its pale blue skin flickered with worried energy. "I tried to read its thoughts," the alien said. "But human minds are strange. They think about too many things at once." The other 3 prisoners, a Korath raider, an Exarian warrior, and a plasma beast from the Outer Rim, all nodded in agreement. They had seen the security videos. They knew what the human's weapon could do. Outside their makeshift fortress, 10 prison guards formed a circle. Officer Han the Jin led the group. She was young for a guard captain, but very smart. Her team carried the most advanced weapons the prison had: plasma rifles that could melt through steel, neural disruptors that could shut down any brain, and force shields that could stop a missile. But they all hesitated to move forward. "Captain," one guard whispered, "should we attack the prisoners or protect them from the human?" The Jinn did not know how to answer. She had watched the security videos too. The human's chocolate had taken down creatures that their best weapons could not stop. What if some of the chocolate got on her guards by accident? What if they breathed in chocolate dust and died from poisoning? "Stay back," she ordered. "Keep your distance from both the prisoners and the human. We do not know how dangerous that weapon really is." The sound of footsteps echoed through the hub. Kim Dae-ho walked into the large room carrying the last piece of his chocolate bar. He looked around at the scene, 10 armed guards pointing weapons in all directions, 5 terrified aliens hiding behind furniture, emergency lights flashing red. He sat down on the cold metal floor and crossed his legs like he was having a picnic. "This is silly," Dae-ho said in clear galactic standard. His accent was still noticeable, but his words were easy to understand. Nobody needs to be afraid. He unwrapped the remaining piece of his chocolate bar and took a small bite. The sweet smell filled the air. Every alien in the room moved further away from him. "Stay back, human," shouted the Korath raider from behind the barrier. "We know what your poison can do." Dae-ho chewed thoughtfully and swallowed. "It is not poison," he said calmly. "It is just food, chocolate and peanuts. On Earth, children eat this every day. My daughter loves these bars. I brought a whole case of them on my cargo ship." He held up the chocolate so everyone could see it clearly. "The brown part is made from cacao beans. We add milk and sugar to make it sweet. The lumpy parts are peanuts. They are a kind of plant, seed that grows underground." The Zephyrian mind controller floated higher above the barrier. "You lie, human. Food cannot be a weapon." "You are right," Dae-ho agreed. "Food is not a weapon. But food that is safe for one species can be dangerous for another species. On Earth, we know this. Chocolate is poisonous to dogs and cats. Onions can kill birds. Grapes are deadly to some animals." He took another bite of his chocolate. "I did not know that chocolate and peanuts were dangerous to your species. On my world, this is normal food, but your bodies work differently than human bodies." Officer the Jinn listened carefully. She opened a communication channel to the medical center. "Doctor, are you hearing this?" Dr. Kim's voice came through her earpiece. "Yes, Captain. The human is correct. What he calls chocolate contains theobromine, a chemical that human bodies can process safely, but most alien species cannot. The peanuts contain proteins that trigger severe allergic reactions in non-human biology. So he really was just eating lunch?" the Jinn asked. "That is correct. His biological weapon is actually a common Earth snack food." Behind their barrier, The escaped prisoners heard this conversation through the room's communication system. They looked at each other with growing understanding and embarrassment. The Vorthok assassin was the first to speak. "You mean, we have been running from a food bar?" Deho smiled and nodded. "Very good chocolate, though. Made by a company called Hershey. They have been making chocolate for over 150 Earth years." Director Kim Heiss, who arrived in the central hub with a team of medical staff and security experts. She was an older woman with gray hair and wise eyes. She had run this prison for 15 years and had seen every kind of crisis. She walked directly to Deho and sat down next to him on the floor. "Mr. Kim," she said, "I think we owe you an apology and an explanation about why your cargo was considered dangerous." The 5 escaped prisoners slowly came out from behind their barrier. They no longer looked like dangerous criminals. They looked like embarrassed children who had been caught running from shadows. "I have a proposition for you," Director Heisu continued. "Instead of serving time in prison, would you be interested in working for our Xenobiological Research Department? We clearly need to learn more about cross-species dietary interactions." Deho finished his chocolate and carefully folded the wrapper. "Will I be able to bring more snacks from Earth?" Under proper safety protocols, the director smiled. "Yes,